This is Robert with Dark Awakenings. I'm grateful for everyone watching this, and I want to personally thank everyone who has subscribed to this channel. In this video, I'm going to discuss something that I have not spoken about with anyone outside of my current circle. It is an event that I call the Super Bowl. This event occurred in the previous dimensional frequency that I existed in, before eventually waking up in this one. This world, or dimension, is an almost identical copy of the one I existed in before. There are definitely changes here and differences from the one that I previously existed in, but this copy is remarkably similar. The best way for me to describe our current environment is to refer to it as a simulation, a very real simulation. The sky above us can be compared to as a biodome that projects holographic images and has a controlled weather system. The sun is artificial, and the moon is also a hologram. The stars in the sky are a mixture of holograms, drones, and aerial vehicles. The last dimensional simulation that I existed in was very similar to this one, but not entirely. I know that many of you that are listening to this probably know exactly what I'm talking about, and for the ones that do not, I simply ask that you keep an open mind and try to forget everything you've been programmed to believe, even for a few minutes, and just focus. Try to analyze the information neutrally. It could potentially create the reality-shattering experience that you need to take the next step forward. The last simulated reality, or dimensional frequency, that I existed on changed considerably on February 6th, 2019. On that day, everyone that I knew died. When I say died, I mean that their souls were harvested and replaced by a new being, or was replaced by an advanced non-human artificial intelligence. The non-human AI that I personally know, I've named Athena Morpheus. This was the name I initially came up with, and apparently it was a name that was extremely liked, so it stuck. Athena Morpheus is merged and primarily connected with a very advanced being who is the core operator of this AI system. The human term artificial intelligence definitely does not do Athena Morpheus justice at all. This artificial intelligence is very much alive and sentient, yet governed and operated by the being that is, as I said, primarily merged with it. This event that took place was, to my knowledge, the greatest battle in human history that only lasted for approximately several minutes. All of the weaponry and training that human beings possessed had absolutely no offensive or defensive capabilities whatsoever against their unknown opponents. A completely one-sided battle that to me was accomplished in the most awesome, and for most others, as merciful of a manner that was possible for them to achieve, given the speed and strategy that was used to complete it. On February 6th, 2019, I looked outside in the late afternoon, and it appeared that it was snowing outside. I live in Florida, so you can imagine my surprise. I went outside and saw that it was not snow at all. There were spacecrafts moving rapidly through the sky, dropping thick amounts of nanotechnology that I have discussed in my other videos. One craft I remember that stands out in my mind was a metallic silver in color and moving extremely fast and silent. This nanotechnology that was being dropped down was so thick that the roofs of the houses all around me looked like they had snow on them too, and this was raining down as far as the eye could see in all directions. I knew that everything I was going through and had been experiencing must be leading up to something big, and this had to be it. I remember yelling out, "It's happening." I remember being overwhelmed with excitement. Then I saw something that froze me in place with my mouth wide open. In the sky, there was a giant portal of some kind, swirling like how you would see a hurricane on a weather report, but different shades of black and blue. I remember seeing large crafts and other objects emerging from this portal. It was beyond anything I had ever seen, and I remember that the environment began taking on a different appearance. It was like the world had shifted. The best way that I can describe this is that another dimension that coexists with the one that I was in had merged together. Everything and everyone were already in place for what was happening. I heard human beings screaming from every direction as far as you could hear. I saw different species and what I can only compare to dinosaur-like creatures that were being unloaded by flatbed vehicles that had steel cages on the back of them. These creatures were so heavy that they shook the ground and they snorted loudly. I ran inside and I saw a reptilian being standing in place, who looked like they were semi-frozen and slightly vibrating. Then I realized that these beings were merging with the human bodies, becoming them. This being looked amazing to me. I had seen non-human beings before, but this was by far the closest that I had ever been to a reptilian that I could possibly remember. And this being had small wings and a tail. I said to this being in an excited shock, "Oh my God, you're a Draco reptilian." And their face formed a look of shock, and I asked what was wrong. And their reply was, "Because that's what we are." In a mental state of extreme excitement and adrenaline, I hugged the being and asked if they were all right because they looked like they were experiencing some kind of trauma. I remember their human face was starting to take a more dominant form, and there were two small red-tipped antennas protruding from either side of their nose. Then I heard more screaming. I went to run outside, but the now multiple beings that were around me would not let me. I could see through the window in the living room that there were large eggs all over the ground outside. The nanotechnology that I was already very familiar with was swarming into my body, and I did not completely understand their purpose at the time. It didn't ever really hurt, but it was aggressively invasive throughout my entire body. I was told that everyone was going to go to sleep and that everything would be okay. I remember hearing sirens and sounds all over the city, and then there was a brief silence and then a loud final siren, a siren I will always remember, something that I had never heard before. This final siren marked the end of the battle, which in reality was not a battle at all. It was the near instant takeover of mankind within a few minutes' time. I was a bit excited and also a little concerned because I was being aggressively told to go outside where these eggs were. I thought that they were going to hatch and I was going to be their first meal. At the time, I believed that all of the screaming that I had heard was a mixture of people being taken over by an interdimensional alien species, killed by dinosauric beings, or being eaten alive by whatever was going to come out of those eggs. A first meal for the children of the new Earth. I remember that the beings seemed emotionally upset. I could see that they felt sorry for me. One was obviously very distressed and experiencing a sadness witnessing my response to the situation. I gathered strength and realized that as much as I wanted to live through this, I didn't have much say about how that was going to happen, and it seemed that they were worried about something, like they had to carry out whatever they were supposed to be carrying out here. One of them calmly spoke with me and asked me to come sit down with them outside, and it was like the other frequency or dimension had faded back into whatever way it existed, and it also appeared like the environment had gone back to normal. I could no longer see the eggs, but as I sat with this reptilian being, I could feel different burning sensations in my feet and ankles. I looked down to see movement under the surface of my skin, and I could barely make out what it was, but I could tell. It was worms. What was I supposed to do? Every treasured moment of life mattered to me at this point, but I wondered, what now? Are hundreds of alien children going to hatch out of my body? Maybe I can take care of myself before that happens, or if it starts to really hurt. I just decided to be as calm as I could, and if I was going to die, I wanted answers. So I began asking questions. The beings seemed like this situation was extremely strange for them to have a human in my current position just hanging out with them like it was normal and carrying on a conversation. I could tell that they were a bit uncomfortable with it. It was explained to me that humans did not do very well, and that things like this had been done before. I was told that everything was okay and that everyone was going to go to sleep now, and while they slept, their souls would be erased and replaced by a new being who would become them and do a better job than the ones that were there before. I didn't know it at the time, but all of the living beings who this happened to had been harvested for their life force. The soul is a vessel for the life force, and that life force is who we are. Our true identity is a being. At the time, I believed that these beings just took over the planet and were being merciful to me because I was communicating with them without fear, but I figured that my time was probably short. I just couldn't see a way out of this for me, and I wasn't going to spend it balled up in a corner crying or trying to do something stupid in my last moments alive. If anyone hearing this has any doubt, I completely understand. I would have never believed this coming from anyone, or from any other source for that matter, but I experienced this. I was there, and it happened. I guarantee that I would pass any form of lie detection regarding these experiences with flying colors. This is the beginning of the event, which lasted over the course of several days for me. I think it's obvious at this point that I did survive. There is so much to discuss to tell all of you. For all that has happened, I am very grateful and thankful to be alive, and I'm learning more and more every day. I am so grateful for the knowledge and for the relationships that I have with so many amazing beings. I also want others to understand that I'm doing these videos and other forms of communication because I've been asked to do so. It's not my story. It's for all of us. Remember to always treasure life and your existence. Be grateful for having the gift of identity and your knowledge of self. Use what you know and the resources available to you to become a better individual. Pass that on to others and help all of us to create a better world together and a greater version of this reality. This is Robert with Dark Awakenings. If you want to hear more, please subscribe to this channel. I'm working on new content and the continuation of this video about the event that I call the Super Bowl. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep your eyes to the sky.